I stood in the kitchen with a wet towel in my hand. I looked at the floor. It was clean, but I kept wiping it. I was not thinking about the floor. I was thinking about his words. He said them last night. "You talk like a child." That is what he said. I didn't say anything back. I just smiled. But after he walked away, I didn't feel right. I stayed in bed, but sleep did not come. The next day, I still felt low. My name is Sophie. I live in New York City. Eric and I rent a small apartment near Wall Street. He works in an office. I stay home. I cook, clean, and try to learn new things. Every day I listen to English videos. I want to speak better. But no matter how hard I try, Eric says I am not smart. He says I don't sound right. He says I don't ask good questions. I hear those things more than I hear kind words. When we first moved here, I was happy. I thought our life would be good. I walked down the street with him. I held his hand. I looked at the tall buildings and the bright signs. I felt proud. I thought, this is our life now. I was wrong. One day, Eric took me to dinner with his friends. I wore a blue dress. I liked that dress. It made me feel nice. At the table, people talked fast. I didn't understand everything. I smiled and said yes and okay when I could. I was quiet. On the way home, Eric didn't say anything. In the apartment, he looked at me and said, "You made me look bad tonight." I didn't understand. He said, "You say simple things. You sound like a girl, not a woman." I wanted to cry, but I just looked down. After that night, I stopped going out with him. When he had work events, I stayed home. I told him I was tired, but the truth was, I was scared. I didn't want to feel small again. I didn't want to hear him say I was not enough. Eric has a sister named Beth. She visits us sometimes. One Sunday, she came for lunch. She asked me what I do all day. I said, "I cook and watch videos. I try to learn English words." She laughed. Eric smiled. Then he said, "She tries, but it's slow." They both laughed. I wanted to leave the room, but I stayed and smiled. My hands were cold. My stomach hurt. That night I sat in the bathroom. The light was off. I sat on the floor. I did not cry. I just sat. I thought, what is wrong with me? I try every day. I learn words. I cook good food. I clean the house. But Eric only sees what I can't do. Last week, I made eggs and toast for breakfast. Eric took one bite and said, "Too much salt." He pushed the plate away. I ate alone. The eggs tasted fine to me, but the table felt cold. My hands felt heavy. I looked at the chair across from me. It was empty. I thought, I feel alone, but I am not alone. That is the worst kind of lonely. Once I wore a red dress. I liked that dress too. I looked in the mirror and smiled. I walked into the room. Eric looked at me and said, "That dress is too loud for you." I put it back in the closet. I never wore it again. I started to feel afraid of small things. I watched my words. I spoke only when needed. I smiled when I was sad. I laughed when I wanted to cry. My face was calm, but inside I was tired. Sometimes I watch other people in the city. They walk together. They talk and laugh. They hold hands. I wonder if they feel safe. I wonder if they feel loved. I wonder if their husbands listen to them. I wonder what it feels like to be seen. Eric never yells. He never hits. He never breaks things. But his words are sharp. They stay in my mind. I hear them when I wash dishes. I hear them when I lie in bed. I hear them when I walk down Wall Street with my head down. One night, we watched TV. A woman was talking about books. Eric looked at the screen and said, "She speaks so well. Not like you." He laughed. I did not. I stood up and went to the kitchen. I poured water into a glass, but my hand was shaking. The water spilled. I cleaned it quickly before he saw. He came to the kitchen and said, "It was just a joke." I smiled, but it was not real. I wanted to say, "Please stop," but I didn't. My only friend in the city is Rachel. She lives far. We talk on the phone. She tells me, "You are strong, Sophie." But I don't feel strong. I feel small. I feel like a flower with no sun. I wake up, but I don't bloom. Last week I stood by the window. It was raining. People walked fast on the street below. I looked at them and thought, I want to be one of them. I want to walk with no fear. I want to go somewhere that is mine. I don't want a big house. I don't want nice things. I want peace. I want soft words. I want to feel safe in my own home. Last night, Eric said something that stayed with me. I asked him a question. He looked at me and said, "Why do you ask such silly things?" I didn't say anything. I just looked at the floor. But inside, I broke again. I don't hate Eric. I don't want to fight. I just want to feel like I matter. I want him to see me, not my mistakes, not my English, just me. Sometimes I think about leaving. I think about packing a small bag and walking away. I think about going somewhere quiet, somewhere warm. But then I think, will he miss me? Will he even ask where I went? I don't know the answer, but I know this. I cannot stay like this forever. One day, I must choose myself. One day, I must say, I am enough. Before I share the rest of my story, I need to know, where are you listening from? Knowing someone hears me, understands me, gives me strength. The next morning, Eric left early for work. He said nothing to me. He just took his bag and walked out the door. I sat at the table and drank tea alone. The room was quiet. I looked at the chair across from me. It felt like it was looking back at me. I missed talking. I missed being seen. After breakfast, I cleaned the dishes. I wiped the table. I made the bed. I moved slowly. I had no energy, but I did the work. I always do the work. That is what I know. But no one says thank you. No one sees the small things I do. Not even Eric. In the afternoon, I sat by the window. I looked at the people outside. Some walked fast. Some held shopping bags. Some smiled. Some looked tired. But they all looked free. I wanted that. I wanted to feel free again. I remembered something from last year. Eric and I took a small trip to the beach. We ate ice cream and walked near the water. That day, he held my hand. He kissed my cheek. I felt happy. I don't know where that Eric went. Now he only looks at me with cold eyes. When he came home that evening, he was on the phone. He walked past me and said, "Don't forget to iron my shirt." I didn't say anything. I took the shirt from his bag and placed it on the chair. I ironed it after dinner. He didn't say thank you. He just looked at the shirt and said, "Next time, try not to leave lines." At night, I sat on the sofa. I looked at the wall. Eric was watching something on his phone. I said, "Can we talk?" He said, "Not now. I'm busy." I waited for 1 hour. He didn't look up. I stood up and went to the bedroom. I sat on the bed and closed my eyes. But sleep did not come. The next day, I tried to cook something new. I found a simple recipe online. I wanted to make him smile. I wanted to show him I care. When he came home, the food was ready. I waited for him to take a bite. He did. Then he said, "It's okay." That was all. Just okay. I felt my chest go tight. I smiled and said, "I will try a better one next time." He didn't answer. Sometimes I ask myself, does he even like me? Not love, just like, I don't feel it. I don't hear it. When he talks to other people, he smiles. He laughs. His voice is soft. But with me, his voice is different. It is flat. It is sharp. It is cold. One day, I went to the store alone. I wanted to buy eggs and bread. On the way, I passed a small park. There were 2 women sitting on a bench. They were talking and laughing. I stopped and looked at them for a moment. I wanted to sit beside them. I wanted to feel that warm air. But I kept walking. At home, I opened the fridge and put the food away. I looked around the kitchen. It was clean, but it felt empty. Everything in my life looked fine, but inside I felt lost. That night I called Rachel and I said, "Do you have time?" She said, "Always." I told her about the things Eric said. I told her about the dress, the food, the joke, the cold look. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Sophie, this is not okay. You are not a child. You are a woman. You deserve respect. I felt tears in my eyes. I wiped them before they fell. I said, "But he does not hit me. He gives money. He works hard." Rachel said, "Yes, but he also hurts you with his words. That pain is real too." After we ended the call, I sat by the window again. Wall Street was loud that night. Cars moved fast. People passed by in nice clothes. I watched them. I thought, they all have somewhere to go. I only have this place, but it does not feel like home. A few days later, Eric had a work party. He asked me to come. I didn't want to go, but I said yes. I wore a soft green dress. I brushed my hair and used light makeup. I stood in front of the mirror. I whispered, "You can do this." At the party, people spoke fast again. They talked about things I did not understand. Eric spoke with 2 women and a man. I stood beside him. I smiled when they looked at me. Then one woman asked me, "What do you do?" I said, "I stay home. I learn English online." She smiled. Before I could say more, Eric laughed and said, "She's still working on her sentences." The group laughed with him. I looked down. I wanted to leave. On the way home, Eric said, "You were quiet again." I said, "You made a joke about me." He said, "Don't be too soft. It was funny." I said, "It didn't feel funny." He didn't speak after that. That night, I could not eat dinner. I lay in bed and stared at the wall. I thought, is this my life now? Every day I try. Every day he pushes me down. The next morning, I opened my phone. I searched for small English classes near Wall Street. I found one not far from our home. It was free. I signed up. I did not tell Eric. I started going to the class each week. I sat with 5 other women. We learned words and spoke slowly. I liked it. I felt safe there. No one laughed at me. One teacher, Mrs. Brown, said, "You speak clearly, Sophie. Don't be afraid." After a few classes, I felt a small light inside me. Just a little, but it was new. I started to feel strong again. Not big and strong, just enough to stand taller. Eric didn't ask where I went. He didn't notice the small books on the table. He didn't see the soft smile on my face when I came home. But that was okay. I didn't need him to see it. I saw it. One morning, I woke up early. I made tea and sat by the window. The sky was gray. The street was quiet. I watched the world outside, but my mind was busy. I thought about my life. I thought about who I was before I met Eric. I was soft, yes, but I was also warm. I used to laugh. I used to dream. I missed that girl. Later that day, I went to my English class again. Mrs. Brown smiled when I walked in. She said, "Good to see you, Sophie." That simple sentence made me feel happy. I sat down and opened my notebook. I wrote new words. I said them out loud. I made small mistakes, but no one laughed. I smiled more in that class than I did at home. One woman in the class was named Helen. She was older than me. One day we walked home together. She asked, "Are you okay, Sophie?" I said, "Sometimes." She looked at me for a moment, then said, "You can talk to me anytime." I thanked her. Her words were kind, and kind words are hard to find in my life now. That night, I made soup for dinner. Eric came home late. He looked at the soup and said, "We had this last week." I didn't speak. I ate my soup. I looked at the table. He picked up his phone and started to scroll. We didn't say much. I felt like I was not really there. I went to bed early. I lay in the dark and looked at the ceiling. I asked myself, will this be my life forever? I thought about leaving. I had no money, no job, but I had my voice. I was learning more words. I was learning how to speak. And one day, I would speak for myself. The next week, I got a small message on my phone. It was from Mrs. Brown. She said, "You speak well now. Would you like to help me with the new students next month?" I felt something warm inside. Someone saw me. Someone believed in me. I said yes. I didn't tell Eric. I didn't think he would care, but I started to feel stronger. I walked with my head up. I spoke more in class. I laughed with Helen. I listened. I learned. One evening, Eric came home and looked at me. He said, "You look different." I said, "I feel different." He looked at me again and said nothing. He sat down and turned on the TV. The next morning, I wore my red dress again. The one he said was too loud. I looked in the mirror. I didn't feel loud. I felt ready. I walked to class with a smile. That day, I helped Mrs. Brown with the new women. One of them said, "I feel nervous." I smiled and said, "Me too. But it gets better." She looked at me and smiled back. That small moment made me feel proud. At home, Eric started to notice the change. I spoke more. I walked taller. I asked questions. I said what I liked. He did not say much, but I could feel something was different. One night he looked at me and asked, "Why are you always out now?" I said, "I go to class. I help. I learn. I feel good there." He said, "Do you think you are better than before?" I looked at him and said, "No. I think I was always good. I just forgot." He looked surprised. He didn't answer. He went to the bedroom. I stayed in the kitchen. My hands were cold, but my heart felt calm. The next few days were quiet. Eric didn't say much, but he didn't make jokes either. He watched me, but he didn't say the same cold words. I didn't know what he was thinking, and for the first time, I didn't care. One Saturday morning, I woke up early. I wrote a small list of things I wanted to do. Go to the park, buy fresh bread, read a book, go to class, smile. I didn't need big dreams. I just wanted a small life that felt true. That evening, Eric asked, "Do you want to go out for dinner?" I looked at him. I didn't know what to say. It was the first time he asked in many months. I said yes. At the restaurant, we sat at a small table. He looked around, then looked at me. He said, "I see you're not the same." I said, "Yes, I changed." He said, "Did I do something wrong?" I looked at him. I wanted to say so many things, but I only said, "You never saw me. You judged me." That hurt. He was quiet. He looked down. He said, "I didn't know." I said, "Now you do." I didn't cry. I just looked at him with calm eyes. After dinner, we walked home. We didn't speak much. The city lights were soft. The wind was light. I looked up at the sky. It felt wide. That night, I stood by the window. I looked at Wall Street again. I was not afraid anymore. I was still learning. I was still quiet, but I was not small. Not inside. I still live with Eric. For now. But I am not the same. I have my class. I have my words. I have a small voice, but it is mine. And that voice will lead me to the next step. I don't know what my future looks like, but I know this. I will not stay where I am not seen. I will not stay where I am judged. Because now I see myself. And that is where healing begins. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and share. More emotional and inspiring stories are coming soon.